Hi, I'm Doug Evans. Currently, I spend time working with Volumod in the reentry program, especially in their classes.
Hi, I'm John. I'm the Director of Safety and Reentry at Volumod.
I'm Kirby Laux. I'm the Superintendent of New Construction for Renewing Management.
Yeah, the Second Chance program is very important. I spent a big part of my life working in the Indiana Department of Correction, and as the years went by, I saw too many people more than once coming back in the system and realizing that there's got to be more happening on the other side to bring this together. And so while I was still with IDOC, we started developing reentry programming and taking it to kind of a different area than what it had been before. And then after finally retiring there and getting connected with renewing management and Volumod, I found an opportunity here to try to use my old connections and start bringing people in here where they were trying to build a successful Second Chance program. Extremely important. We can go back and look from 1996, New York Department of Labor, and we can find statistics all the way along that shows 85 to 89% of people, if they get rearrested, are unemployed at the time they get rearrested. So a Second Chance program where people can gain meaningful employment is key to not going back in the prison system.
My passion for reentry started very personally, as have spent a lot of my life incarcerated. Well, what I consider a lot of my life incarcerated. I've got about a decade wrapped up in the system, 8 years of that directly in the Department of Corrections. That was on 3 different sentences, the last one being a little over 5 years. And then when I got out, I was lucky that I came from a family of means and that I already had a trade and I already had some education. So I was able to come out and get back on my feet. Rather, still wasn't easy, but easier than most. Um, and then transitioning back into my field, which was construction. I was an electrician, and I ended up being an employer with Volumod. Doug and I started the reentry program with a lot of input from John Gaiman at Volumod and got up to 30 or 40 employees there that were either reentry or in work release or some way wrapped up in the justice system. For a long time, they thought education was what kept people from going back to prison. And what they really found over time, and really what it is being able to make a living wage. Um, so my personal belief is that we, at least in the state of Indiana, we are really good at incarcerating people. We are not very good at letting them out. We're just not. We fail horribly at doing that. I know with all the resources I had and how difficult it was for me, and then watching some of my other brothers and sisters that come out of that situation struggle, um, it's really difficult. So to be able to have a place that's going to not take advantage of them, pay them a living wage, continue to where they're going to continue to make more and more money as the years go by is something that hits my heart on a personal level, just to help people that have been through the same things I've been, and also on a societal level. We have a lot of people incarcerated, and almost every single one of them gets out. So we really, as a society, should be setting them up for some kind of success. We just should be. It's just the logical thing to do, especially considering that most of them are nonviolent and things like that. Just a little bit. It's a lot cheaper to do the work on this end than it is to incarcerate them. A lot cheaper. Um, so, so my passion came from both sides, definitely.
Following up on what Kirby was just saying about we're not very good at releasing people, I really like to get into statistics that tells us what we're really doing, and over 97% of the people incarcerated are released. And no, we're not very good at that. Here recently, we had an escapee in Pennsylvania, and it just captivated the news coast to coast. But during that time, we legally released thousands of people, and many of them have already committed crimes, gone back to prison. So, when it comes to keeping people incarcerated, keeping them where they should be, we saw a statistic once. The number of people escape every year, it's less than 1/10,000th of 1% of the people incarcerated across this country escape. But we release thousands upon thousands every year, many of them not prepared.
My background is that I was a career criminal. I was incarcerated for 18 years, and my passion comes from my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I see all the hurt and pain that comes from my community and people around me, and it's in dire need of some aid and assistance, not a handout, but a hand up, and for opportunity to show that we can be productive citizens. And we made error in judgment, don't make us a bad person. Given the opportunity, we can be that person that God has intended us to be. So my passion and zeal come from my new birth and my identity. My identity is that I'm a Christian and I serve my Maker, and I know who I am and who I belong to. So I know my purpose in my life. My purpose is to give back, to be a servant, to be the hands and the mouth of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I'm so committed with every fiber in my bone to live out my days being His servant. Going back into the prison, which I go back into the prison, I teach Inside Out Dad, 24/7 Dad, to the guys who once wore the same clothes that I wore, slept in the same bunks that I slept in, and let them know that there is hope and there's a possibility, and know if they get out that they got a home with Valuemod and they can be redeemed, and they don't have to wear the scarlet letter, if you will, I'm a felon, because we don't judge anyone here. We give you the opportunity to be the man and woman God has called you to be. We help with housing, we help with transportation, we're going to help you get your credit in order. We here to serve. We got the whole garment here, the whole package for them. I'm a prime example of that. My dear brother Kirby here was in the same boat that I was, and we redeemed. When we go back, people see us and say, hey, there's hope. They can change, because sometimes you look on TV and you see the atrocity and the horrific crimes that take place, and nobody takes the time. Why did this person commit this crime? The anguish and the hurt. I grew up in a single parent household. My father went there, so the street became my father. So my job as a man is to go back and teach other men how to be men. And I just thank God that we have this platform to minister to people.
The important players in getting a person from a time of incarceration to successful life in the community and rebuilding and growing that life. There's a number of people involved. I think one reason we saw a lot of success with what we did with renewing and Valuemod is not by our, God in His way just saw a bigger picture, knew what needed to be. I worked in the prison where John was incarcerated, and we were in the same shop at the same time, but never knew each other until long after that. And when I look now at John and Kirby and what they bring, the people they work with on the floor, they identify with them. They know, they've been there. I've seen John, he's as straight up as he can be, and he won't cut anybody any slack, but people have such a trust in him and what he does. And so when we combine that, and then I'd just come out, over 40 years worked inside the department, you make a lot of connections, you understand a lot of the channels. So I was able to call up on the resources. I mean, one of the important things, you've got to build a good network. And so I knew people in the parole districts and the work release centers, and still within the prison, I could contact people and say, do you have people releasing back to this side of town? And then John and work with him, Kirby and I worked a lot in interviewing those people, finding out who'd be set. So you got to have a number of players, but I think we've been real successful here because we had, I worked on one side of it in the prisons for many years. John and Kirby saw the other side. And so all of us learned what we brought together from our experiences has really worked here. And so to do this real successful, I think it's important to have those elements in place.
Yeah, I can piggyback on some of what Doug was saying about resources that an employer would need to start a program. I think one of the main resources, honestly, is mindset. A little bit of belief in humanity goes a long way. I saw the system, as Doug was saying, from the inside, and you get really jaded when you see the system from the inside. And while you're in, you feel like the people that were like in Doug's types of positions and the officers, the work release officers, you feel like they're not on your side a lot. And the truth is that most of them are just overworked. And they have no resources. They've been whittled down to where they could help you if they had the resources. They just don't. So my personal experience at Valuemod is that when we offered so many resources, and Valuemod continues to that reentry population, that we became almost like a bastion of hope for for instance, Marion County Work Release. And we got to have a really good relationship with them to where they were almost a buffer towards us getting people that were going to cause chaos within our, because not everybody is ready to be reformed. They're not. And, you know, I could name the people there that'd be like, oh, you don't know that we'd get referrals from inside Volume Mod from other employees, and they'd be like, no, they're causing trouble at the center all the time. They're doing this, they're doing that, because they were really happy about the fact that we were offering them things that they wish they could offer them. We were offering them trainings they wish they could offer them, benefits they would, you know, health benefits, all sorts of things that they wish. And a lot of these people went to college with the understanding that they would be able to help reentry people or help people in some way, and they're kind of hamstrung by the lack of money in their own system. So just that little belief that there are people there, and there's some really good other organizations, and VOA is one. I mean, they have some case officers, and they are on fire for reentry, and again, limited resources, and they love having an employer to work with that is going to meet them over halfway with people. And then you just slowly build it up. The community is your biggest resource, though, I would say, as far as getting referrals. You know, a lot of referrals through community. So, and having formerly incarcerated people around or employed to help with that, I think part of why John was so successful. John hired me when I got out, and later why, taking off from what I learned about John, how I became, I think, successful at it, is that connection like Doug was talking about. I'm able to be a little bit harder on them because I've been there. You know, it means a little bit more, so.
A few of the criteria would be like we don't take sex offenders or violent offenders who have to register. We want to see if they done anything and why they was incarcerated, what program was they in, what kind of write-ups did they have. So we got a nice screening process, and then we kind of slightly interrogate them, make sure they're on the up and up, because this is a family that we invite you into, and we want to make sure we have the right family members in here. And so it's a pretty thorough screening process that we have. And me and Kirby are able to answer a lot of the deep questions because we was on the other side, and so we're less likely to get finagled when we ask these questions.
That criteria, as far as just the work skills, I know Kirby and I found out early on, they would sit there, oh, I did that, yeah, I've framed houses, I've done whatever, and we found out we had to really drill down on that because, you know, this wasn't a lot of times, you know, there's not a 10-year resume there or whatever, what all's gone on. And so we'd had to get down to the point and say, okay, you just showed up to the job site, the lumber's there, what are you going to do? And we've had one person say, well, you just start getting the boards out and build your house. Where the next person says, well, you put everything for the subfloor, and then you start framing your walls, you get the right things for the drywall leads, and, you know, and they walk through the process. We did have to start to drill down and find out, you know, who really has experience, who's, you know, we were hiring some people didn't have that experience, but you want to know who was who before they came in. So sometimes you have to really drill down, because they are, when people come out of incarceration, they kind of take some different paths. Some of them are so shy they almost won't tell you about everything. Some of them did some great work in prison, but it was in prison, so they don't look at it as being worthwhile. And so they maybe hold back from you some. You get talking to them, you can pull out some other things, say, oh, you have done that. You do know how to do this. And other people just maybe are really overselling themselves because they're thinking, you know, if I don't, I'm not going to get a chance. So we had to get pretty down into the weeds, you know, with a lot of the questions to try to find out exactly where people were coming from. Within the prisons, and it's in all the years I was there, which was a lifetime or two, but you know, I saw it was really rough at the beginning, but the last 10 years especially, and that's when I liked when Kirby said a little bit ago about a mindset. We actually did a workshop in the prisons called Changing a Mindset. And because people, you know, trying to get them thinking and realizing, because a big part of my career in DOC was working in correctional industries. So we had men and women, about 2,000 across the state, every morning getting out of their beds, leaving their dorm, their cells, whatever it might be, going to work on a real manufacturing floor, you know, running printing presses, making garments, refurbishing brake shoes, wire harnesses, various things like that. So there are some real skills that are being taught. Along with that, there's some certification programs, other classes in welding and various things happening now. So there are men and women coming out that do have basic skills, some of them way beyond basic skills, and they're ready to go to work if we find employers like we have here that are willing to give them that chance.